Alright guys, so let's talk a little bit more about validation and the smarter way to do it. So in our previous example, we had a validate method. Let's just destroy that for now. So just delete that, and we're going to save. And the form will still work the exact same, except it will not validate anything. It won't print any errors or anything. Now, also, before we get started, in the field.js file at the very bottom, you guys probably just have a string of text here. So if this prop's touched and this prop's errors, then we're printing out something like this field is required. Just replace that with the actual errors passed in as the props themselves. All right. So if you just make this one change and leave the validation function from the previous videos, then the actual error message that we're adding to, in the validation would get printed out here. So this is going to be essential when we're working with a validation schema because there can be different types of errors. So we'll get to that in just a sec. First thing that you need to do, so you're going to need to bring up your terminal. We're going to install Yup. Now, Yup is a validation schema provider that Formic can integrate with. And it's very straightforward to actually do that. So to do that, we need to first run npm install -- save and then YUP, all lowercase, and hit enter. I've already got this installed, so it might actually just update it or reinstall it. Before that even installs, we can actually start writing our code though. So let's get started with that. And it's all going to take place in the contact file. So in our contact file, the first thing that we need to do is at the very top we need to import Yup. So Yup exports a number of different modules, so we're going to import asterisk, which means all, as Yup, from, and then all lowercase Yup. And now this is going to allow us to use this keyword in our code. So where we once had the validate method that took in the values, it's literally going to be as simple as creating a new property using Yup. So we don't need to really code any type of validation manually. It's all going to be kind of like we're going to just specify fields or different type of requirements. We're not going to actually check input fields. Yup does that all on its own, which is one of the cool things that it does, and one of the ways that it really helps, just make things faster. So the first thing that we need to do, where we used to have our validate method, we need to create validation schema. And this is camel case, so the S in schema is capital. And now put a colon. Now, rather than writing a function or an arrow function here, we're going to use a Yup object. So capital Y, then lowercase up, dot, object, dot, shape. And now this shape method is going to take in an object, a JSON object. So in here, we are going to basically specify name, email, phone, and message as properties of the object that's passed into the shape method. I hope that makes sense. Once you do it once, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get that. So let's go ahead and do it. So name, and we're going to specify certain rules for name. So yup.string. So we are saying that the name field needs to be a string. It should be anyway. and then required. So required. And now the interesting thing is that if you look at the way this line flows, we're saying name must adhere to all of these requirements, and they're kind of yup methods chained together. So we need a string, and it's required. Now you can also pass in a string, a text string, into these methods for the error that will be added if this condition is not met. So what I mean by that is this required method right here that we're calling on the name field, we're going to pass in an argument, and this is going to be used as the error itself if the condition is not met. So you must give us your name. Simple. Save this and then open up terminal. You guys now should have yup installed. You should see a little plus yup down here along with a version number. If you do, let's get started. If for any reason it failed, try again. Make sure you're spelling everything correctly. We should, though, all be good to go with this, and we should all have yup installed and active. Now, when we run the application now, what we should see is when I click into the name input field and then tab out of it, see if we look at the field logic here, if it has been touched, which means if we've been in the field and we're leaving the field. So this gets triggered on blur. And then if this props errors, so if there's an error related to this field, then we're going to print out the error. Now this is currently loading. It shouldn't be that much longer. All right. So now if we go to the contact page and I click into this and click out, you'll see it says you must give us your name. And that's because that's the error that's getting added, because it's required, and the required parameter, I guess, or the required requirement is not being fulfilled. And so we can also set errors based on length. So if, let's say yup.string, let's say we want the name to be a minimum of 3 characters. So what we would do is between string and required, we're going to chain in another method called min. So .min, and this is going to be a function. Now this is going to take 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be the minimum length of the string that we require. So we're going to say 3. It needs to be at least 3 characters long. And then a comma, because the next parameter is going to be the error message that we want to print if the string is not 3 characters long. So, come on, bro. Your name is longer than that. So let's save this. And now if we tab out of it, okay, we get this error message. But then if we say ER, it's going to be like, come on, your name is longer than that, you know. And so this is a perfect example of when different requirements are not met. They are producing different error messages. And so that's the name field. Let's go down and add email, because the really cool thing about this is that it has a built-in email kind of verification process, so it can tell what looks like a valid email and what doesn't. So we're going to say this is a string and email. And then if it's not a valid email, let's produce the error message of you need to give us a valid email. and then also required. So required. And if it's required and that requirement isn't met, we're going to say we need your email. And then I think we forgot to add a comma at the end of this line here. So there. Now we have two fields being validated by a simple schema. So name, okay. Look at this. You need to give us a valid email. So it knows that this is not a valid email. I'm going to add an @ symbol, and it still knows that this is not a valid email. And as soon as it fits the format of an email address, it's going to say, okay, this looks like a valid email. You're good to go. And if the field is required and there's no input there, it's just going to say, we need your email. And it's not going to say anything about the validity of an email. Now, similarly with a phone number, we can assume that for the most part, phone numbers are going to be 10 digits or higher. I think in Europe, phone numbers can be 11 or 12 digits. I think they can be a few digits more. In North America, and I'm sure many other countries as well, it's 10 digits. Actually, let me search that because I may just be completely wrong. Length of phone numbers. What's the longest possible? All right. What's the longest possible worldwide phone number I should consider in SQL? This is actually a very relevant question. Considering there's no overhead difference between a varchar. Okay, so that's just from the perspective of SQL. You can make it 50, although I think what we really wanted was like international calling prefix, country code prefixes, suffixes, at most 15 characters. Okay. This is great. This is actually the answer we wanted. So if you're in North America, the format of the phone number is going to be area code, which is 3 digits, a prefix, which is 3 digits, and then the actual phone number, which is 4 digits. And so that is 10. 10 to 15. So we can specify here that yup.string. So let's say min is going to be 10, and if it's less than 10, we're going to say please provide your 10-digit phone number. Let's say max 15, and you know what? Something that I haven't mentioned, but it's we can actually do this on different lines, which is probably going to make it look a lot nicer. So let's just start doing that. So maximum 15. Let's say your phone number is too long, and then let's also say required. And if the field is not provided, let's say we need a phone number to reach you at. So there we go. And then if we go back to our application, we can start seeing messages based on, oh, it's too long now. Oh, it's not long enough. And if we don't provide it at all, you can have very conditional error messages here. There we go. And that's exactly what we want. And now for this field, a message, let's assume that everybody can write 500 characters. And that you don't just want tiny, messages in your input, or rather in your contact form. You actually want somebody who's messaging you about something. So let's say message is going to be yup.string. and then min, and so minimum is going to be 500 characters. If they don't fulfill that requirement, let's say you need to provide us more detailed information. And then down at the bottom here, let's go ahead and also add required. Message is required. There. And we are done with the validation. Now I'm also going to send you guys a link to Yup itself so that you guys can see all the different types of parameters that you can use. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna actually so let's go ahead and try this form out one last time and see all the errors that we can get. There we go. Alright, so now I'm gonna actually put in real info, so my name at me.com. My phone number is going to be this, and then my message. Man, I don't want to type. I'm just going to copy until we get 500 characters. There we go. All right, and then send, and we've submitted the form. Now, what we can do is, if we have an error message, it doesn't submit the form, see? And so this is going to help keep you from getting spam, immediately on your contact forms just by using Yup and Formic. It's a lot easier and quicker to get set up with than manually validating the forms. And so that's all there is to this video. This is the validation schemas. In the next video, we're going to start to get into the backend itself by building out a REST API.